You're in church, dude, and like there's somebody behind you or around you doing the whole come on, yeah, preach it, every 3 seconds, and you're like, I just wanted to turn around and be like, oh, did you agree with all this? All of this you do every single day? You just walk around your day thinking about all this, and this guy's just confirming it. And you're like,
Yeah, I
Like,
went to this
what?
one church and this guy was sitting in the front and the whole time he's like, "Yes, come on, pastor, come on, pastor," and I was like, I like the fact that you're feeling the Holy Spirit and everything, but you know, I don't
I
know.
I
Maybe
honestly wanted the dude to say something to the effect of like, I'm gonna get there. Hold on, I'll get there. I know I would. I don't know if you've ever spoken in front of like a crowd or anything,
oh
but
yeah,
you hear everything. Like when a cell phone goes off or something, I was like that wow, that is really distracting.
well, dude,
Now I understand. So
that's my thing when you're at church and like there's a baby crying or some
I love babies
anything,
crying.
people talking in the background and this, that, and the other thing, and I'm like, man, how do you just keep going? Because like when you're playing a show, obviously like I can't hear anything. I got my in-ear monitors in, the music is loud, but it's like when you're just talking and the room is dead silent, it's just like just keep going, everything's okay, this is fine.
I do like babies crying though. Like when a baby's screaming in a restaurant, I love that. Scream for me. Because it's dude, especially when they reach that crackling, they're just going and
Yeah, it's that peak. Gosh, it's almost like those typical baby noises you hear in shows. You're like,
Yeah,
obviously, like, you got that from a reel. It's like, like you keep
yeah,
laughing
yeah.
and stuff. It's like, it's just that screeching, like,
Like they clicked and dragged a sound effect into it.
yeah, exactly. So, today, on this glorious morning, we're gonna be talking about music again, and then we're gonna get into a broader topic of general pay and stuff like that. So,
That's the thing about like, all right, so I remember like the shift when like SoundCloud and stuff came out, when all suddenly music started just being free. I didn't have to get like um, one of those downloading services or whatever, like LimeWire or freaking iMesh.
actually free, not just
Actually
like,
free. I'm not pirating it. It's actually free.
yeah.
Like basically the same time streaming came out, and then they started having these paywalls where you have to have like SoundCloud Go, Spotify Premium or whatever, but for like extra features and stuff. But
Or no ads.
and I remember when I was getting into electronic music specifically, like most of the time they would just release stuff. I don't know if it was because it was remixes and they didn't own the rights to sell it or anything.
I feel like that's kind of I think it's genre. It depends on the genre. Like I think some people are like, you're gonna come to my show, so here's a taste of what you're gonna get.
Yeah.
And then if you're in a rock band or something, it's like, well, here's the single, and then buy the album.
I'd be interested to hear from some artists. Like I know that I remember hearing that Michael Jackson like barely made anything off all his records, even though he sold a shit ton, and that most of like his money that he made was in like concerts and memorabilia.
Merch, yeah,
But-
that's what they always say. Like,
But
merch.
yeah, but and maybe tickets to Neverland. I don't know, but but I do know that if I'm an aspiring artist, nobody wants to pay for my music anyway. I'm just gonna give it to you, and if you happen to want to come to one of my shows and actually give me some like bread and butter that night, where I actually take home $1,000 in like one night, then I would rather do that.
Well, it's kind of like the Black Waltz days. Remember when we made all those CDs? And correct me if I'm wrong, and forgive me, Matt, if I'm speaking out of turn, but I think he wanted to sell them, and you and me were like, dude, no, literally nobody knows who we are. No, we're gonna give these away. And I might be wrong about that. I don't know if he actually said that or not, but I do remember at one point there was talks of selling it, and I'm like, nah, dude, we're just gonna give this away.
You know what though, dude? Shouldn't music kind of be free in a way? Like I'm not this guy that's like music, but dude, like, do you really get to own sound for? I mean, I think if you haven't made your money off of sound in like 7 years, like it should be for everybody.
Well, that's the hard question, right? Because it's like, because Tim Pool talks about this, like, our economy today is making nothing and selling it, right? Like you're literally just selling nothing, and in that sense, like, should music be free in that sense? Maybe, but at the same time, it's like all the work and effort and money spent in recording it and this, that, and the other thing. It's like, should it be free? Because it put a lot of time and effort into it, but at the same time, it's like looking at a painting.
Did you put all that time and effort into it because you enjoyed it and it was like a hobby that you were good at, or did you do it specifically to make money? Because if you did it just to make money, I would argue that you're you're now turning out a product. You're not turning out art, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that kind of makes sense. And one, that's true, and in the sense that out of all the videos I've watched of all the bands I'm into over the years, the consensus is the same. If you're not doing this because you enjoy it, you're in the wrong field. Like if you're in it to make that Michael Jackson money or that Justin Bieber money, like maybe pick a different profession, because that's the rare, like, you know, one out of a million, or whatever you want, whatever number you want to pick, right? Like you're
Yeah.
far less likely to become, you know, Lady Gaga, Katy Perry, Justin Bieber. Pick your artist who's making a lot of money or appears to be making a lot of money, and you're probably not going to be them.
What do people go to shows for anyway? I know, like for myself, like I go to have a good time. I can listen to all that stuff in my car, just the biggest sound system. It's like 1,600 watts or something. So like I'm gonna get all the bass and everything, and like it's gonna be loud. But I'm going to the show to like have a good time also. So I'm not really even paying for the music at that point, even when I go to a show.
Well,
Right.
else, it's like going to the movies, dude. It's like, yeah, you can stream this at home, yeah, but I want the experience.
Right.
So yeah,
Right.
you're right. You're going for the experience. You're not necessarily going. Like, yeah, you're going because you like the artist, this, that, and the other thing, but you're going for the experience because, like you said, you can listen to all this stuff at home and, for lack of a better imagination, get the same kind of feedback from it, right? Maybe not the same experience per se, but the same experience in the sense that I'm still enjoying the music.
Yeah, and I get when people say like, I want to do this for a living, and how do I do this for a living, and you know, it's hard for an aspiring musician and whatever, blah blah blah. Like I get that, but you're literally transitioning into most people's dream job. So first of all, it's not going to be easy. There's massive competition, and secondly, you're literally, like you were saying, you're literally starting a life on basically entertaining people. So it's not really a necessity, music.
Yeah.
So you're getting mad because you're not getting compensated a good wage to do something that's not necessary, and also everybody wants to do. So not everybody can do it, but I'm just saying, like, I'm doing it poorly, like explaining why it's
I know
silly
exactly
to
what
make
you're saying.
like
Well,
it's silly to demand like a rate like that when it's like, dude, like how about, like, for me, like for me, I just do it for fun, and if somebody also enjoys it, cool, awesome. But I'm not sitting there being like, oh, you listen to my track 50 times, I don't even get one play. Like, this computer doesn't cost nothing. My time doesn't cost nothing. And it's like, yeah, but I didn't do it. I would have spent money to do it. I would have paid money to like make this. Yeah, dude. I get why some people should do it for a living, because it allows them to like focus on their craft and fine tune it and hone it. And some people are really gifted musicians and should be compensated for the art they produce because it is good. But that's the thing, like you don't have to convince anyone to pay for it. They'll just pay for it.
well, and that's kind of what brought up this question for me, is because the YouTuber Adam Neely did a video recently on touring, and the catalyst for the video was they almost lost $17,000 because of COVID. Somebody got COVID. A lot of things happened. They missed a lot of dates, and there was a tweet of another band that went out that were saying, "Oh, we barely broke even," and all the comments were saying, "You should just sleep in the van. You shouldn't get a hotel room for every band member. You shouldn't this. You shouldn't that. You should just cut all the corners and be on the
Okay.
grind and just kind of live that grimy rock
Yeah.
star lifestyle." And it's like
Yeah,
he was
so they
saying,
were
it's like,
Dave Ramseying him.
yeah,
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like they were saying like, oh, you just got to cut your costs. You got to, you got to be willing to. And it's like, oh, sorry, finish.
no. Well, and then so that was my question. Like, the question was, and his question I was too is like culturally that's like kind of acceptable, right? Like that's kind of what you think of the starving musician, and like, but should it be that way, right? And that's a hard question to ask because, like we were saying, it's like everybody wants to do this, dude, and nobody's saying you shouldn't be paid for your time and effort, but everybody and their mom does music, and that's the issue, is the market is so saturated with people who are just willing to take pennies on the dollar. Like, what are you gonna do? Because the market, right? The market
Yeah.
dictates what the pay is, and
I know. There's a dude at work who plays like stand up bass and stuff, and he's super good, and so he's already put thousands of dollars in even getting this instrument, getting all the equipment and everything. Then he drives all the way up to Bakersfield to play shows basically for free. Sometimes he gets paid gigs because he's good enough to do that. But he plays like kind of like bluegrass and stuff. So it's not talentless. He, can clearly carry a tune, and people will pay money to like hear that in the background or something at like a festival or something, or whatever. But the thing is, like, he just does it because he likes it. He doesn't do it, obviously he's told me before, like, I would quit my job if I could do this for a living, but it is what it is, and I'm just glad to be playing. Well,
in my experience too, I would say that there's definitely a market in the sense that like wedding bands and like people who play top 40s for like 2 hours at a bar. Like my friend Steve does that. I forget what his band's called. Shout out to Steve. I forgot what your band is called. I'm sorry. But as far as I understand it, they do get paid to play gigs, but dude, they're playing for like hours, and they're playing top 40. They're not doing original music for an hour and a half. Not like Metallica or the bands that we're into.
Yeah, and that's funny because I just I saw Thrice post, and like I always have to shit post. You saw my comment?
No, I didn't see your comment.
Okay, I have to.
I saw the one where they canceled the show.
It was the one before that, so I always have to shit post them just because of like they have really disappointed me over the years. But so
they disappointed me not musically though. Like whenever I go.
No, yeah, it was their attitude. It was like the smarminess.
Whenever I go on like, sorry Thrice, and like you're ever gonna hear this podcast, so I'm not really that sorry. But whenever I go on Dustin's Twitter, I'm like, this is why I'm not on Twitter, because of people like you, bro. Like your lyrics and like your interviews just don't line up with what I'm seeing on Twitter.
Exactly, dude. Yeah. So this is what I sent. The post was some kind of like basically a graphic for one of their songs, and one of their new ones, and I was like, I remember when I was backstage talking to Dustin in 2008, the night they filmed a live DVD at the House of Blues in Anaheim.
I remember that. Yeah, you're on the cover of that DVD.
Yeah. I asked why he's so resistant to playing his old stuff, and he gave me a great answer. When you write a new song, it becomes the best thing in your mind. This is paraphrased.
Sure.
When you write a new song, it becomes the best thing in your mind, and the rest are trash by comparison. So you're really excited to play your new baby, and all you can hear in the old ones are mistakes and things you would have done differently. Good answer. Other than that, an uninteresting encounter. And everybody's like laughing and liking it and like basically ratioing it. Right?
Yeah.
Because I'm just like, I'm pretty sure their experiences are the same as mine. You guys are dull, boring. Your opinions on anything but not music is like it's. I don't know whether it's informed or not, but you're coming off as somebody who's like authority. You have authority on the subject you're talking about, and you don't. You're just like this guy, and it's like.
Well, let me pause for 2 seconds. This is why I can't stand celebrity interviews. Like like Matt Damon, he's just the first person I thought of, but it's like they come in and people ask them these questions like they just somehow know more than you because their status in life, and it's like, dude, they're just some person just like you. They probably know even less than you because they don't have to know as much as you. Dude,
it's always packaged like some kind of like groundbreaking fact that we all need to just take a pause and behold, right? It's like, it's never gracious. It's always like, did you ever consider that, I can't even come up with an example. It's like, did you ever consider that this many people die every year in the United States and we throw away this much food? It makes you wonder. And it's like, it doesn't make me wonder. I actually know why that all happens, and you're not the first person to come to this revelation. I'm sorry that you're levitating above the rest of us, but why don't you play some music? You are a jukebox, okay? Here's what a jukebox is. You put money in, it plays a song. I paid you money, you play a song. You're a jukebox, okay?
Well, and two things. First of all, yes, I have thought about that. Well, no, I'm with you 100%. First of all, to your first point, I have considered that, and when I worked at Ralph's, instead of throwing away, like the bakery used to not sell a lot of stuff, instead of throwing away all of our food, we actually reached out to a food bank, and every week they would come get our food. So what are you doing? I'm doing something.
That's okay. That's the smarminess I'm talking about. You've now lectured all of us on something that we were already aware of. We didn't need you to bring this to our attention, but you're treating this like a cause du jour for the day. and you're doing nothing about it. Not only you're doing nothing about it, but as soon as you log back off of Twitter, I'm positive it was off your mind because there was no action or follow through.
Yes.
So you just did this thing, and I did my good deed for the day.
Yeah, I said some stuff, and to your second point as being a jukebox, like that was always my point. Like if Metallica and Iron Maiden and Megadeth, if let's take Iron Maiden for example, I saw them in 2008, 2009, and they still played The Trooper, they still played Iron Maiden, they still played Number of the Beast. Why? Not because they don't think their new songs are better. For the fans. It's like, dude, the reason that you play Deadbolt and the reason you play To Wake and Avenge the Dead and the reason you play Cold Cash, Cold Hearts is not for you anymore. These people got you to where they are. They helped you get there, and this is for them.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
That's why everybody still goes ape when they hear Master of Puppets and stuff. It's like, do you think they really enjoy playing that song for the 10,000th time? I'm sure some days they're not feeling it and they're sick of it. They're like, man, these people, like, you do owe the fans something. They showed up for you. The least you could do is show up for them instead of sitting there. I even asked Tepe the same question. He said something to the effect of, it just wouldn't feel like I'm being authentic to myself if I release the same album. I'm not asking you to release the same album. I'm asking you to play it again at your live show.
Yes. Well, and that's the one thing I've always respected about Thrice, and like only to a certain degree though. Like, oh, we just make what we want, and it's like, that's fine, man. But if you make what you want and people don't like it, you don't get to be mad either, because people like you for a certain reason, and you are the one few bands that's fortunate enough to where the fans just kind of just ate everything up that you made.
I don't think this phenomenon is like unique to Thrice either. I'm sure there's all kinds of bands that there's the new fans that don't like the old fans. I'm positive that Green Day is a good example.
But Thrice is a good example in the sense that they're one of the few bands where people who have been around since 2001 Illusion are still around, right? Like I'm sure there's other bands that are out there, but they're one of the few bands that I know where just like people just lap up their music no matter what. Like, dude, Beggars was not that good. Major Minor was, in my opinion, was trash. I did not like that album.
It was trash.
It was. But I mean, I say that to say like Thrice is one of the few bands where the old fans just like they stuck around, right? Whereas like Green Day, it's like they're not punk anymore. They sold out. They made Boulevard of Broken Dreams, and like Thrice,
that's because Thrice is a band that other bands listen to. You know.
Yeah, fair. They were never really They never really sold out in the sense. I don't know if you can call Green Day sellouts because like I always tell people this, like, dude, you can only make punk music for so long until you're like, dude, I just want to do something else. You know. So I don't really think Green Day sellouts, but they certainly made.
I just want to be gay now.
Yeah. Well, but they certainly made music like. That's way more mainstream sounding than anything Thrice has ever written. Like the most mainstream Thrice ever got was Artist in the Ambulance, and even then they still made like singles, but they still did it Thrice style, where you're still like this sounds like a radio song, but you guys did it right. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like you guys like whereas Green Day made Boulevard of Broken Dreams, and it's like, dude, this just sounds like the record company came up to you, and you're like, here's one for you.
It makes me so sad when I heard that. I'm like, you guys.
Yeah.
No, so the whole debate of like new fans versus old fans, I mean, I encounter it with almost every band, not with an artist. Most of the time, like if you have a single artist, like even with like Taylor Swift and stuff, her new stuff is good, her old stuff is good, and their fans like both. It's like these bands.
I think she's good too.
I like her.
I think she's good.
It's these, dude. The album with Feeling 22.
Yeah.
I listened to that whole album. I'm like, this whole thing is good.
I could be wrong, but here's my theory on that. My theory on that is like why like Justin Bieber is kind of less relevant. I could be totally wrong, but as far as I understand it, she has a big part in writing her own music, and I feel like artists that have a big part in writing their own music kind of survive a little bit longer. Like Bruno Mars has a big part in writing his own music. Like, correct me if I'm wrong. As far as I understand it, I know Taylor Swift at least has a hand in writing her own music, and I feel like anybody who kind of has a hand in writing their own music, they evolve a little bit and they kind of have a little bit more longevity than people who don't, like Carrie Underwood and Justin Bieber. You know what I mean? Like Carrie Underwood's kind of relevant now. Justin Bieber's kind of like they're still there, right? It's almost like Madonna. Like Madonna still like has her base and everything, but she's not really getting any new fans like Taylor Swift is.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. But what I'm saying is that there's a weird. I understand that bands will like evolve over time, and they're almost like unrecognizable in a different band in a sense. Even some of the artists I listen to, their new stuff is way different than their old stuff.
Yeah.
But I think as long as they have a style, and that's what I think Tepe was getting to when he said like I feel like I'm not being authentic to myself. Like you said, if they have a hand in their own music, even when it changes, they're still them.
Well,
Right?
and
It's still like, for instance, like the Killers. Whenever they release something, it's still the Killers. I still hear the Killers in their music, even though it's a little different. I still hear it because they have this style.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing with Thrice too, right? Like, their music has like it has vastly changed, but when you really look at the core of it, it's like aggressive vocals, distorted guitars, and then 2005 they started doing synth stuff. Like that's all still there. Like even when you listen to their newest stuff, the vocals are still pretty aggressive. There's still some like maybe not metal, but there's still heavy elements in there. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of that Thrice thing, and like being creative with like chord progressions and stuff like that. That's like that's a real Thrice thing. And then odd time signatures, sort of.
I want to go back to this like budget saving
Yeah,
thing
yeah,
that they were talking about
with
with like telling a band to like, well, this is how you can do to cut costs and stuff. And I can't help but think about like whenever I'm complaining about prices, especially now, or like rent or housing or stuff, like there's always these people that will say like, you need a car, but you don't need a $500 car payment. You needed this, but it doesn't need to be this much. You can brew coffee at home and drink it. It's like half the price. And it's like, dude, you can't Dave Ramsey your way out of like a $4,000 apartment that's a 2-bedroom apartment. You can't just budget your way out of it. And honestly, like basically what you're saying is like I'm just gonna lower my standard of living to a point where how do you take that to its logical extreme? Let me sublease my bedroom and put 2 bunk beds in there, and then I have money for, fun stuff or whatever. And it's like, you can't, there's a point where that doesn't work anymore. I trust me, I'm somebody who I'm really good at budgeting. I know when to save money. I'll buy like the lower brand stuff at the store, even if I have money for the good stuff. 'Cause I'm like, dude, this is basically the same thing, and I'm just throwing away my money if I spend, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Or I won't buy an energy drink unless it's on sale or whatever, because something's on sale and it's all caffeine. I don't really care.
Yeah.
But there's a point where it's like, dude, I am doing budgeting and saving money, and there's still problems. So basically what I'm trying to say is like, the answer isn't always, well, just got to pack all the guys in a van and sleep in the van and rough it in a hard time. And it's like, dude, we're not trying to be train hoppers going around with our banjos playing in backwoods, little blowing on a freaking bottle,
Well, and that's the question too. Like when does that stop? It's like, is it just always van life? And as somebody who likes music and all that, this, that, and the other thing, it's like, should that even be acceptable? It's like, in the sense that like, yeah, I understand it's a grind, this, that, and the other thing, and maybe your standards have to come down a little bit, but it's like, dude, sleep in the van and go to Walmart and get chips and call it a day to save $1. It's like, I don't know, man.
There's I think back in the day when people were doing that, like a traveling band and stuff, the mystique of music was different, and it was okay to show up with a guitar and like have just a small setup stage, just plug straight into your amp. But like the minimum requirements for playing a show now are so much higher, and the sound fidelity required by an audience is so much more, that you can't just sit there all around one mic in a studio and all play at the same time. It's like, hey, this is our album. They all have to be, isolated tracks. And like, even when you're playing a show, everybody's got to have like their EQ, pedals. Like there's 1,000 things that go into the production of a show. So like, you can't just say like scrape at the bare minimum. There's like a minimum entry fee, if you will, for playing music now.
Well, and what really gets me is it's like, I think it was early 2000s, like Blink-182, and to bring it to a real throwback, remember Cut You Up, Riding in the Vans with Boys? It's like, yeah, dude, that was funny, but it's like, are you really going to live that way? It's like the whole, like, we're musicians, so that means we're funny, and we do,
that was a summer thing for them.
Yeah, exactly.
They're not, I honestly, dude, when I hear about a lot of like the artists that sometimes I'll look up, when I hear new artists, I'll look up how they got started, how early they started, what they were doing. Like most people on American Idol and America's Got Talent or freaking X Factor and everything, they all started like 12, 13, playing shows, getting in talent shows. They've been in like 20 talent shows. This isn't just somebody being like, I can sing in the shower. I'm going to show up to American Idol. They already have albums and like vocals. They already play shows and everything. So like this idea that like you're just, I went from like singing in the shower and playing in my corner of the room to the main stage is not true.
Well, and you remember JoJo?
Yeah.
He
I was just thinking about it last night because what did the devil do to the baby?
Yeah, so we won't get into that. We won't trash talk nothing like that.
I know.
But,
I was just saying.
it
came to my mind.
But I remember he was getting ready to go on the X Factor, and I'm like, why, dude? Like, I'm not saying that you're not like you can play guitar and you can sing, but that's a totally different level. That's a totally different level of stuff. I remember like every now and then I'd play like an acoustic set or this, that, the other. They'd be like, oh, you should go on American Idol. I'm like, why, dude?
Did he go?
Yeah, he went. Yeah, he went on. But he, what people
do we have video of this?
No. And so this is what people don't know or may not know is that you go through a whole bunch of other producers and stuff before you get to in front of the, so they weed out a lot of the chaff. And what the effed up thing about those shows is that the bad ones who get through, that is purely for the show. Like there was already people that they went through, and because this is what JoJo said, you go through a couple of different layers before you even get on camera, and they nix you or they don't, which means that the people who got on camera who are bad, they did it just to keep like.
Dude, I want to start like a YouTube series where I find these broken souls that got shattered on national TV and just interview them. It's like, how long did it take you to recover, and are you off heroin now?
Yeah, but the point is like me and him and even you was like, yeah, dude, we can sing, but I'm like a punk rock singer, like, and I don't mean that like, oh, well, punk rock, but like, my voice fits well with rock and metal, and I do okay in those genres, but it's not like I'm not Celine Dion, dude. Like, I fit in that genre, but the minute you put me on a pop song or something, it's like, bro, what are you doing? Do you even sing, bro?
I sing harmonized vocals in a worship band, and I'll sing my own stuff with my own guitar. And I don't like being mic'd because the levels get changed. Like I'm a belt singer, so if I'm not singing loud, it's not good. And so like I usually just don't sing because I don't feel like having an audience. It's for me.
Well, and that's the thing too, dude. We're not bad singers, but you got to put it in our prospective places. We fit well in a niche.
Yeah, and so basically what I'm saying is like I don't like. Especially like our first shows, like I didn't expect a wage or anything, and in fact, like I literally did it for fun. Especially like the bow ties, I literally played every show just for fun, and it was fun. Yeah, it was so like fun. I got my money's worth playing for fun because that was fun. That's the whole payoff for me, and I was also passionate about the music. I didn't not care, but the payoff was the fun, and so like I for me feel like most bands that made it or whatever started out for fun and they just kept going.
Yeah, well, and that's the other thing too, right? The other thing is I was at this huge gathering. It wasn't a festival, but it was a huge gathering of like execs and producers and this, that, and the other thing, and they're like, yeah, most bands would probably make it, but they just don't want to grind. They were saying after like 2 or 3 years most bands just give up because wages and this and that and the other thing.
Yeah, isn't that human beings? Like you're like people go to school or they'll start a career or something and like they realize the sacrifice required to go forward and they're like, I think I'm just going to do what's comfortable. Because in anything, like if it goes back to that Australian guy. He freaking told me with his wife, he's like, we've had to go, about 10 years without.
Yeah.
But like he's a multi-millionaire now and he owns like 1,000-acre ranch and stuff because he and his wife decided like, all right, we're not going to have a lot right now. We're going to sacrifice, but it will pay off in the end. And I think like a lot of bands as well, dude, Winter Solstice, when they quit, they had like a press release or whatever. And they said like, yeah, like most of us except one guy, they were like, we just can't do this anymore. It's just not paying the bills. We have families at home and like we can't do it anymore. And that makes sense. Like whether they wanted to or not, they have obligations and responsibilities too, and they did a cost-benefit analysis, and they're like, "We're okay. We're not that good. We probably won't make that much money if we grind, so we're gonna hang it up."
Yeah. So, and we'll bring this into a broader term in just a second. So, as far as like bands and musicians and this that getting what they're worth, it's like it's just too hard to say, in the sense that I do think musicians should get paid what they're worth, but at the same time, like, you're never, you might get there, but a lot of average people aren't going to get there because the market is so saturated. It's like, even if I wanted to do something about it, I'm one person, and there's a bunch of other musicians out there just willing to take pennies on the dollar.
Yeah, there's undercutting for sure. And to be honest, like, I honestly, dude, even if I wrote a great song, I wouldn't know how to produce it to like maximum audio fidelity where it's like sounds legit. It sounds okay the way I'm doing it with my own hobby, but in order to really like do the song, I would have to like pay somebody, and I just don't want to invest like that. I'm like, I wouldn't see a return. So I'm like, I'm doing it for fun. I'm getting fun out of it, getting the payoff. Like, it doesn't make sense to invest more money in this.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's the other thing too, that people kind of forget doing the home, kind of like me, the home studio thing. It costs a lot of money to cut a good record.
Dude, Caitlin bought this like steel tongue drum. Like, doom, 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 doom.
Oh yeah.
It's like, it's basically 2 octaves on a little steel drum. And a lot of times I'll pull it out and just play it for like 10 minutes. I'm like, that's what I wanted to do. I didn't want to sit there and like compose an entire, well, maybe I will. Maybe I'll like record a little like intro to a song with it or something. But I'm not like, that's music to me. Music to me is like, I'm going to grab my guitar for 20 minutes, chill out, decompress the mind, and just sort of like doodle.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And it's fun, so.
Yeah, well, and to bring it into a broader sense, pay.
Yankee Doodle.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Yankee Doodle Dandy. Feather in his cap.
Doodle.
Macaroni? I don't even know what I'm talking about anymore. No, you said doodle, and it's just like doodle. Doodle. That's one of those things that everyone's like, my wife is always like,
Doodle pad.
Whenever you send me those Instagram messages, like the voice memo stuff, and then I just start like, I'll be in here and I'll just start saying whatever we're saying like 10 times and like
do little, do nothing.
Yeah. And I'll start doing it like doodle's a perfect example. Like I'll be in here like just say my wife's in the other room and I'm just going doodle, doodle. She's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I can't explain it.
I'm trying to practice saying this as harsh as I can until I get the harshest, most maximum mean way to say it. Then I'm done. I'm done.
The funny thing about us doing that is I like, you've been having me do it for like 20 years now. And so I get there like quick. It gets me like 2 of them. And then all of a sudden it's like doodle.
The best one.
Doodle.
The best one was Bushwhacker. Because the best one was Bushwhacker because we were saying it in the back of Sheldon's Mustang, I think.
Yeah.
With Blake.
Yeah.
So I was like, Bushwhacker, Bushwhacker, Bushwhacker. Bushwhacker.
Dude, the great thing about that too is it's like it's a total like
Bushwhacker.
It's an inside joke. So maybe you get the whole like I want to say this thing as harsh as I can, but also if you've ever played Chrono Cross, you're like, I get it. I got that one.
Bushwhacker.
So we're talking about pay, and I kind of wanted to bring it into a broader sense, in the sense that minimum wage and a fair wage and this, that, and the other thing. And it kind of got me thinking, when I worked at Del Taco, a lot of people were talking about the $15 an hour wage thing. This was 2014 when I was working there, and I worked there for 2 years graveyard. And when that was going around, dude, I worked there, dude. I was making $9.75, and I was like, I don't deserve $15 an hour, dude. I work with high schoolers, right? And I'm not saying I work with a high schooler, therefore I should get paid less. I meant I work with somebody who has no skills and can do this job, therefore.
Well, okay. The thing about minimum wage is I am in favor of people getting paid a living wage, but the problem is when you raise a minimum wage, it just prices everything up. And so it literally, not only are the minimum wage people not really making more, they're making more technically, but like in terms of real purchasing power, they're making less. But also the people who just got out of the minimum wage or like making like 18, 19, now they're making less too. So it's like it hurts everybody. The minimum wage was never supposed to be a living wage. That's kind of the difference. Is like if you do what you're supposed to do and you work hard and stuff and you there's exceptions, but you're not going to make minimum wage. You're going to make more.
Yeah. So. Well, and that the thing that I kind of get bummed out every time minimum wage gets raised, I'm like, dude, now I have less buying power because of what you just said, right? Like I don't want to. We'll keep it. I make X amount of money, and every time minimum wage goes up, I'm like, great. So I grinded all that for nothing. I could have
Right.
just waited and
Yeah.
then got a job and then make the same.
And honestly, like I would be in favor of that if it helped the people making minimum wage, but it doesn't even help them. So it's like everybody gets screwed. Basically, when you have if minimum wage was up to $20 an hour, and you had all these high school kids basically like making, I don't know, $3,000 a month after taxes, and now they can all afford to move out. A lot of them will. So now rent's going to go way up for everybody. Like they're, basically people who weren't meant to make that. The whole idea of a minimum wage was like you can't
Can't take
exploit
advantage of-
people, right? But a part-time minimum wage job was supposed to be, I need some extra money for the summer, or I'm in school right now and my parents aren't that well off and I'd like a car by the time I graduate, or I want some experience, right?
Yeah.
That's really what it's for. It's not for like, let me sit here. Dude, some of the jobs, like we were just talking about the security guards. Security guards used to be like actual security guards. Now it's like this rickety person who we need a body to put on at this desk. He's going to observe and report. He's not going to touch anybody. He doesn't need
Yep.
does he have any. He just needs a guard card or whatever from the state. If it says he passed some aptitude test, which is probably super easy to pass, and it's like he's literally useless. He's there because there was a law that was passed or some kind of regulation that said you need to have a security guard if your premises is X amount of square feet. So
Yeah.
they're just like, okay, fulfill that obligation here, pay him minimum wage or whatever, just let him sit there. Dude, and it's really depressing because they can tell that their job is pointless, and everybody can tell their job is pointless. So it's just like, whatever, dude, just sit there and collect your money. And it goes back to what I'm saying. Work is more than just the money you bring home. It's like you feel of value to your community, to the world, to society at large.
Yeah.
You feel like you're producing value and you have value. It's dignity. So when you have undignified minimum wage jobs and you're getting paid more than you should to do nothingness, it actually takes away your dignity because you know and everybody else knows that you're not worth what you're getting paid for. So there's resentment building.
Yeah. Oh, that's deep, dude. I didn't even think about it that way. But I mean, you hit the nail on the head, dude. It's what more do you want out of life, right? You shouldn't just be stagnant in these minimum wage jobs. You should be striving for more, no?
And look, I understand the corporate like compensation is way out of line too, and that needs to be kind of fixed. Dude, they literally teach you in Harvard Business School, like they'll teach people to basically don't increase wages, hire people at low rates. That way, when they ask for a raise and you give them 5%, it's only 40 cents. It's not $2,
Yeah.
right? Or like
Or start them low.
Basically,
and then they'll get back to where they should have been.
keep your labor costs really low, or like do whatever you can to tamp it down, or even lower wages. They teach that in business school. So instead of just forcing them to raise wages or whatever, you should change the culture of business in general.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be people like they had this huge problem in 2007, 2008, and even afterwards of people saying we need to give them a lot of money to attract the good talent. But then a guy would sign a deal that says like, if I increase revenue by 30%, then I get $100 million bonus. And so he'd go into a company in order to increase revenue. He would just sell off a lot of the assets. So he would gut the company, net the revenue, say, look, I increased the revenue, and then leave. And the company's just fucked.
And
Like,
then they're,
for lack of a better word, sorry.
And then they're bone up, and everyone's out of the job.
Yeah.
And now we're worse off for it. And then this jag off is.
And the problem with raising the lower wages is that same problem I had when I first started when I was at Vaughn's. We had to join the union, which means I was getting paid less than minimum wage, which actually we won the class action lawsuit for.
Nice.
But they also had us on 2 tiers for their union. So like we were literally second class citizens in the union. Like
Yeah.
all the people that got hired before.
I was part of the Ralph's union.
Yeah. All the people that got hired before 2005 got the good deal where it's like you work 1,000 hours and you get $5 extra. the second tier was like you work 1,000 hours, you get $3 extra, and then there's all kinds of other stuff.
No, I'll say the same thing, dude. When I was at Ralph's, it was the exact same thing. 2-tier system, second class system, this, that, and the other thing. And then I asked my boss. I was working the night shift. I was making $8.40. And I asked him, I was like, dude, how can I get a raise? He's like, you have to work your hours. And I'm like, dude, I looked at all the information provided to me online. It said I had to work 1,000 hours to get 10 cents. You got to be kidding me with that. And he's like, oh, the only other way you can get like top tier pay, which for GM was like $14.50, and for grocery it was $19.80 until you go into management. It's like you have to get promoted to a management position. I'm like, well, when's that going to happen? Because none of these people are quitting because they're hanging on to everything that they have right now.
Yeah, so you're creating this whole, like, the market will correct itself. So if you're hiring people $15, $16, $17 an hour for a job that takes 10, the market's just going to correct itself. Either the business is going to find a way internally to still screw those people over, sometimes in a worse way, or two, they're going to automate it, or they're going to eliminate it. Eliminate, automate, and you see this a lot in grocery stores. And honestly, I've seen all the numbers. Grocery store profits, like, it's not a profitable business. They make like $1,000 a week extra in actual net profit, maybe that, for the entire store. And the store does, like, if I remember correctly, like $300,000 in sales a week, $1,000 profit.
Yeah.
So it's less than 1%, right? So
That's crazy.
I don't know why anybody would start a grocery store, but my whole point is, like, there's not a lot of wiggle room. Okay, so they're gonna find ways to eliminate the problems. They're just not gonna hire as many people, demand more, the people that do get paid do more work, and you're back to square one. The minimum wage job that didn't require you to work that much, and you could do that while going to school, or, do that where you're doing something else. Now you got to put in 36 hours a week, and you got to work while you're there. And also, they're still probably going to automate you.
Well, let me pose this to you too. I don't know if this is accurate or what, or I'm just talking out my ass. What I'm seeing is that companies just won't hire young people anymore because they're thinking, if I'm going to pay you this much, I'm not wasting my time investing in you. You need to do the job now. And so I'm going to hire somebody older that can do the job. I'm not going to hire young people and give them that experience.
Yeah, there's going to be like a weed out process. So, like, we're not going to take chances on people who have any kind of record. We're not going to, they're not going to hire people without some kind of, like, extracurricular activity on their resume. They're probably going to start asking for, like, high school grades and stuff. So it's gonna price a lot of people out of people that, let's be honest, should just go to work, don't even bother with school.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It's just like, I'm almost one of those people. I barely learned anything in high school. I learned about AP Bio and I learned about motifs. That's pretty much it. Like, everything else, I kind of knew already or was learning. So I remember passing that test sophomore year of, like, can you do high school? And I was like, I passed it. So I was like way high. I think I was like 10th out of the entire school. And I'm like, can I just go home?
Well, I mean, might have been better off.
You know what? High school also teaches you to play the game, which I was not good at.
Yeah.
Play the game and, like, do your stupid homework and show people that you'll do the dumb shit that people ask you to do.
Yeah.
Which I failed at. So.
But I mean, at the same time, like, because Tim Pool talks about this, it's like, would you have been better off just going out there and doing work instead of wasting your time in high school? Like, let's say you're not going to go to college. Like, wouldn't you be better off just working?
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. A lot of those people, like, won't get the chance,
Well, that's what I mean. But, like, that's what I was talking about with, like, so it started with talking about bands getting paid a fair wage, and now we're talking about young people not even getting the opportunity to make a fair wage, or getting the experience to get them higher up in that ladder to get the fair wage, because the opportunity is slowly dwindling.
Yeah, it's a conjunction of a lot of things. Like, the cost of a home in the 70s was like maybe 3 years of your salary. Now it's like 10 years of your salary. Something like that. Or it's like, well, it was 1.5 years of your salary. Now it's like 5 or something. It's pretty astronomical, though. It's like obvious. It's an obvious increase in this whole, like, growth mentality of, like, well, these people are all invested in homes, so it's good if they go up. Yeah, it's good for them, but it's not good for anybody who's not in the game yet.
Yeah, well, and that kind of throws us back to the topic of the other podcast, the extended adolescence, right? one of my questions was, are people still acting like like are people still acting like they're in college because they have to have roommates, and then there's that kind of collegey mentality of like,
Yeah,
let's go
one
to
hundred
party and this and the other
percent.
thing, and I'm not gonna get home anytime soon, so I might as well just like not save my money and just go like live frivolously because
Yeah, there. Yeah, so it goes also back to what we were talking about government-owned housing and rental cars. When it's a rental car, you don't really take care of it because you know you're gonna give it back. It's not yours. So
Mhm.
like, there's this weird subconscious. Not everybody. I mean, I didn't treat my rental cars like trash because it just didn't have them long enough to eat donuts in them or carne asada, whatever, you know.
yeah.
But like, there's this weird subconscious mentality of like, it's not mine, so I'm not really responsible. And younger people now extending into 20s, maybe 30s too, don't really own anything. So it's like, none of this is mine, so I don't care.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
exactly.
maybe I don't, it's just my guess.
Well, like, of course, there's always an exception to the rule. Like, there's always people who are going to treat the rental car nice because to bring it back to a cultural thing, they were brought up saying, like, because I tell my kids this all the time, if it's not yours, treat it even better because it's not yours, right? And you should be treating things that aren't yours with respect.
Yeah,
So there's always an exception to the rule, but I see your point in the sense that, like when I get a rental car, I treat it nice in the sense that I'm not going to dirty it up. I'm going to get it washed, this, that, and the other thing. But
well,
am I going to play a little fast and loose with the gas pedal and like speed a little bit in the
let me
center
throw
thing?
some let me throw
Yeah,
some
yeah.
at you. I would treat it good, but everybody else is already not going to treat it good. So me treating it good makes no difference. Like for the bus, for example, that thing is beat up every day. Me wiping down the seat or whatever does nothing. So
Yeah, yeah.
I'm literally wasting my time to do, to take care of any of that.
That's fair too, because I had a rental car for about 3 weeks when I was getting the engine on my Kia replaced, and I treated it like my Kia, right? Like sure I respect the thing because it's mine, but I also don't care if my kids make a mess, this, that, and the other thing in it, because like first of all it's mine, and second of all like I can clean it, and so that rental car got beat up a little bit. Of course I washed it, I filled the tank up, I
Yeah, yeah.
vacuumed it out, this, that, the other thing, but
Oh,
I
fuck.
did. Oh, that was weird. I did definitely let my kids like oh no eating in the car, and it's like. We're gonna have this thing for a couple weeks. I can't say no eating in the
Yeah.
car for 3 weeks, especially. And it's like, 10 minutes to go to school. That bad boy, that waffle's coming in the car. That toaster strudel was coming in the car.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I guess in that sense, you're right. Like I didn't treat it better than my own property, and it certainly did get a little bit messy.
Yeah, I think the fair wage for music is whatever anybody's willing to pay. That's honestly where the market's at. Like I won't. It's been a long time since I paid for any music, even the music I really enjoy. But I will tell you that I will pay a lot more for a concert ticket for the like. I used to spend what $30, $35 at
Yeah.
shows like in high school. I'll pay $120 to see my favorite artist. 150, 200. I'll pay $200. I've paid $350 to see Zed's Dead in Las Vegas.
Yeah, my wife Leah wants to go see 21 Pilots, and we're looking at the prices, and I'm like, for sure I'll pay that, but we gotta save up for it. But to your point, absolutely, $400. Like, all right, but let's do it.
I saw Bill Burr at Pala for
Hell yeah!
it was 85 a ticket, so it was 160.
Shout out to Bill Burr.
And all his podcasts are free. That's what made me want to go see him. I was like, this guy, like I follow this guy, listen to his content all the time. Now I'm gonna go see him.
Dude,
So I was willing to pay more.
That's
You
a
know what I
fair
mean?
point. Bringing it back to like, should music be free? Because I wrestle with this one. Should it be free? Like, a big part of me wants to say yes, because it's like, should it be free in the sense that like you are making something, but you're not making something I can use. It's not useful to me in the traditional sense, right?
Yeah, but also like there is value in art though.
Dude,
There is a
absolutely.
cultural value in art.
Well, absolutely, and there's a lot of time and money that goes into cutting a record, but at the same time, like you were saying, like should you pay for music? It's that it's a hard question
I
to
think you
wrestle with.
shouldn't pay for music for different reasons. One, because
Okay.
it makes better business sense for an artist to
Well,
release their music for
That's
free.
the point I was gonna
That's
get
the
to.
main one. That's the best one. The other thing is like I don't think you should be able to own sound waves for. You should be able to make your money for sure because I'm not naive. I know there's money and stuff that goes into it, but you shouldn't own it for years and years and decades. You should own it for 7 years max, and then your copyright expires. And the main reason is because, dude, the remixes on songs are always better than the original. Like
Well,
you know what I mean?
You heard about the Ed Sheeran lawsuit, right?
Yeah, that he's had two.
The Marvin Gaye one.
Yeah, I did hear
Yeah,
about that.
and Adam Neely kind of came to the same conclusion where he's like, you shouldn't be able to like, yeah, the chord progression sounds similar, but like, the guy likes Marvin Gaye. Duh, he sounds like Marvin Gaye.
That's what I'm saying. Like you shouldn't be able to own you shouldn't be able to own sound waves. You shouldn't be able to own culture like that. That's just not. Of course, he should have royalties to his music and everything, but he shouldn't. You should be able to build on the past and stuff. You know.
Well, we're
like,
getting
of
into
course,
this, we're getting into this territory where it's like you were just saying, you shouldn't be able to own chords, right? And so it's insane to say, well, somebody else used that bass line, so now we're gonna copyright strike you. It's like that's insane. Like there's 12 equal tone temperament, so there's 12 notes to choose from or whatever. How I don't know. I should know this exact number. It doesn't matter. That's not the point. The point is there's only so many notes. There's only so many chords. So it's ridiculous to say you can't play these notes in this order because I already did that.
that's what I'm saying, dude. If you haven't done anything with it in 7 years, like it needs to be free now. You had your chance, and you're lucky we're giving you that because, like you said, it's like these are chords. These aren't things that you created. They're things you played it in order, and unfortunately, music is part of like poetic nature. It's musical order and pairing rhymes, and you can't just own it forever. You know.
Well, and to your point, dude, that's all music is building on the past, right? There's nothing original under the sun, and sure, there's different things you can do, and this sounds more original. It's like you were inspired from something; it came from somewhere. You didn't invent it. You didn't invent this chord progression. You didn't invent,
Let's put it this way. Let's do a little scenario. So say I played Billie Jean, right?
Yeah.
And I played it at say somebody's birthday party. I only played Michael Jackson songs, and I was like the guitarist.
Yeah.
Right. And I charged a fee for that. Should Michael Jackson get any money because he created the song? Should he get any money, or should I get the money because I'm the one playing it?
Fair point.
What do you think?
I would say purely from a performance standpoint, you should get the money.
I don't know, dude, because like, you know what I mean? Like I wouldn't have made any money if he didn't write it first and I didn't play it.
Yeah.
Or I would have just played something else. I don't know.
That's a hard one to wrestle with. Yeah.
I think after 7 years, he shouldn't get any money. If it's before 7 years, he should, because it's obviously his intellectual property, but I'm not marketing it. As long as I'm not marketing it as like, I wonder what the laws are, because there's cover bands that make money.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. I'm correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, if you're ever listening to this, but I'm pretty sure they play top 40, top whatever. They play a bunch of covers as far as I understand it. And I don't. It's like a wedding band, right? Wedding band, yeah. Wedding band paying covers and stuff like that. I don't think they need to. You know what? I think it really depends upon. I think it depends upon if it's being released or not. Like if you're just doing a performance, non-televised.
Yeah.
I think that's where the line comes in.
Yeah. I would agree with that. I think that if it's obvious I'm just doing a performance, then it should be fine.
Yeah.
I should get all the money. All the monies. Bitcoins too. Yeah, dude. And then as far as a living wage and a fair wage and everything, that's so freaking complicated. But I do know this, that instead of focusing on the wage, we should focus on all the other things that are increasing in price and all the other problems we have. If you fix that other stuff, the wage doesn't need to be dickered with. You know, you need to either build more houses or figure out something, because the housing crisis is one thing. And I understand they don't want to flood the market and lower the price because it'll destroy a lot of people's 401ks, IRAs, investments. A lot of people have taken out equity loans, so they'd be upside down in their house. I understand that, but that's your problem. That's your old people problem, that you decided to leverage on the new generation of people by pricing them out of the market because you wanted to be a millionaire by the time you were 50, because it wasn't enough that your house was appreciating at 9%. You wanted it to appreciate at 25%. That's your problem for leveraging that. Okay. So if you need to dial it back and you need to suffer a little bit and pay back your equity loan, and instead of your house being worth 1.2 million, it needs to be worth 800,000. When you bought it for 100,000, oh sorry, so sorry. Okay,
Yeah.
but you leveraged it. You pooled all these IRAs and investments into these like big mortgage firms that sat there and bought huge ass chunks of, all these companies and stuff, especially tech companies, to where when one goes down, all of a sudden everybody's screwed out of their retirement. You did that. Okay. These people who are barely even born, just trying to like getting kicked out of their parents' house, trying to figure out a way to like where they can live with their significant other and live and be happy and have a little bit of money extra on the side to like enjoy life. That's not their problem. Okay.
I mean, fair enough, dude. That you bring up a good point on the you took the risk, and why should I be suffering because of that?
because you guys were in charge of the levers of the game before these people were even born, and you beep booped it to where the people that are getting into the game are absolutely at a disadvantage, screwed, second tier, other side of the union tier, if you will, right? Tier 2, whatever they called it.
Yeah.
But that's my attitude on it, and I understand the growth mentality of like asset wealth management and the money supplier and how it multiplies and stuff. I get that. I get all that. But that's why I honestly feel like we're at the end of this phase of like the way capitalism works, because this is you cannot sustain growth like this when there's you could if you had one group of people, but you don't. You constantly have more people being added to the system
Yeah.
as new people. So you can't.
It's not sustained growth, because at a certain point they're gonna, for lack of a better word, phase out.
It just bothers me the way the older generations leverage the young ones. Like Social Security is a great example. I pay a lot of taxes in Social Security, and it won't be there when I'm older. So it won't even be there to like for me to collect. So I'm literally just paying money for nothing. It was literally a tax from people that were alive in the 50s to collect money, and I'm paying for it for nothing. So it's literally a tax on me for something I'm not getting benefits out of. And everybody pays it, so even poor people pay for it. And I would argue they pay a lot more. So in terms of their percentage of income.
Yeah.
So it's literally a tax. It's literally the old people saying, we want the young people's money, right? And healthcare is the same way. It costs like way more money to keep an old person alive, and the young person subsidizes them because they're all in the same pool. So my insurance rates, I pay like $200 a month in health insurance that I don't use because I'm healthy,
Yeah.
right? And they use it like every other week, like thousands of dollars in insurance bills, and all the young people are just paying for the old people. It's like the backwards system. It was supposed to be elderly people. You amass your wealth, you hand it down to the next generation, or you sacrifice, you plant a tree that you're not going to see the shade of, right? You're not going to stand under the shade of, but the next generation will. It's the opposite now. It's like, I need to take what I can get now because I'm going to be gone, and fuck you, you deal with it.
That's my problem with the attitude of like when we start talking about different generations, and the boomers start talking about, oh, millennials are lazy, this, that, and the other thing, and I'm like, there may be a kernel of truth in what you're saying. Absolutely. Extended adolescence, this, that, and the other thing. But I mean, there's a lot broader conversation to be had on that.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. It's so much more complicated. And that's what I was getting at. Like when I'm saying, like, do you think that comes from older people, like less accountability in terms of like, they're not accountable to like institutions, social structures, religion, right? Like if I believed in a religion and an afterlife and stuff, like I would care less about what I have on this earth, and I'd be much more willing to part with it or sacrifice for my kids or my nieces and nephews or whatever.
Yeah.
But nobody I don't know.
Well, you made a fair point too. It's like the only thing that I can say as far as millennials go, and that I think is fair, is the fact that everything is way more expensive, and I don't make more than Dad made when he was 20. But
I don't make more either.
But dude, he was telling me for that condo we had, he's like, oh, I paid $900 for that. I'm like, dude, I pay almost $3,000 for. I think this house is a little bit smaller than that condo, right? So
Yeah.
from 900 to 3, and I don't make more, and that's not for lack of trying.
Yeah,
And like we're
exactly.
a 2-income household, and me and my wife both make the same amount of money, and so that's kind of how we're surviving.
Yeah, that's something that definitely like we were talking about. Like, is the answer just like moving to somewhere where it's cheap? I'm not sure. I'm not sure that's the answer because everywhere is pretty expensive, and people have to follow the jobs, not the housing. So it's like
Yeah, exactly.
I could go live somewhere where it's cheap housing, but if I don't find a job, I'm just gonna be homeless there.
Well, that's what people. Whenever I tell people like, "Oh, I'm thinking about moving out of state," this, that, the other thing. Well, they're like, "Oh, the cost of living is different and the wages are different." I'm like, "Well, I'm not gonna move somewhere where the rent's cheap, but so is my wage.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go somewhere where I get paid the same. That's cheaper." Which is why I was thinking about Colorado, because 2 years ago, it was, I wouldn't say way cheaper,
10
but
years
it was.
ago.
That's
Sorry.
a good song. Bullet for my Valentine. Shout out. 2 years ago, I was looking at renting a house or a 4-bedroom townhouse, and it was like 220. And I'm like, oh, great, I can do that. And then I was looking at the jobs, and I'm like, it was about the
Yeah.
same rate of pay as out here.
Yeah.
I'm like, cool, I can do that. And then, come 2 years later, and I'm like, oh, cool, the houses are now almost exactly the same. The townhomes are almost exactly the same. And so is the wage.
Yeah,
Wage hasn't gone up
exactly.
whatsoever.
There's no point in even making that transition. There's a few places that I know that like the housing is dirt cheap and the wages are higher, but it's in like Alabama. There's one in Florida, Clearwater, Florida. They were gonna pay like I think like 42 an hour, and like I'm not sure how the housing market is in Clearwater, Florida, but it's by Tampa, so I'm sure it's pretty expensive. But
Yeah.
I could commute, I could do a suburb thing there, but I don't want to live in Florida, man. I can't just pick up and go to Florida. I would have to have like thousands of dollars to like even
Just to move.
yeah, and that's not even including like now I'm outside of my social circle. All of my community connections are gone. I'm literally fish out of water over there. I'm not sure. It'll take me a while to reintegrate and stuff, but you don't want to just rip communities apart like that. You really,
Well, dude, and my big thing that I teach my kids, like delayed gratification, sacrifice for the things that you want. But at the end of the day, it's like, how much do I have to sacrifice? Everything? Because like you said, like, oh, well, just get up and move and just sacrifice this, that, the other thing. And it's like, yeah, but what are you asking me to sacrifice? You're asking me to sacrifice my culture, my community, my job, my comfort of knowing where I live.
Yeah, human beings aren't cogs in machines that you just take out of one machine and put into the other machine. That's not the human condition. That's not the spirit of the human soul to just do that, to be like, oh, I guess I'm doing this now. What humans desire is connection and community and roots.
Yeah.
And so it's just that is antithesis of all of that. And it's basically like suck it up buttercup kind of thing. And I understand the value of being able to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. I understand that. However, like I get a vote too. And the way you're voting for the country to be, I don't like. So I'm going to vote against you.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah,
Because this is my
100%.
community too. This is my country too. And so if I don't like it, I'm not just going to say like, oh, well, if you don't like it, like you got to do what you can, man, cutthroat thing. I don't like that way of living. And I don't think anybody should have to do that way of living. So I'm going to vote against all of that.
Well, and then to bring it to another point, as far as like, oh, you got to do what you got to do, and I'm like, yeah, but what I'm being asked to do is way more than anything you were ever asked to do. And so like, I'm not talking about like life's not fair, but at the same time, it's like, could you do it?
I could
Right?
do a lot.
To the older generation,
yeah,
it's
I could do a lot. I've done a lot of like digging out of holes and stuff in life, and that's how I know how sucky it is. And I don't want people to have to do that.
Yeah,
I didn't have
exactly.
kids in a family. Okay, like imagine if I had kids in a family. I'm like, dude, well, what are you gonna, you just send your kids to go live with their uncle for a while until daddy like figures it out. It's like that's not how that. No, that's not a solution.
Exactly.
That's not a solution.
Yeah.
So, bushwhacker.
Bushwhacker.
Yeah, dude. Like I know a lot of people still that like live with their parents and stuff, like with their kids, like at
Yeah.
a certain age. And I'm like, all right, like you're making it work. That's cool. That's cool that you have that safety net. A lot of us folk don't have that safety net.
Well, dude, I'll tell you this. I absolutely do not have that option. So, like, got to be careful with what I say. 'Cause I'm going to talk about my wife right now. I love my wife, and she's great. Sometimes we have disagreements on money and stuff like that, and she's a little bit more short-term thinker, and I'm a little bit more
You don't
long-term
say.
thinker. Yeah, I mean, look, that's the dichotomy of men and women.
Amen.
We balance each other out for sure. Like,
Yeah.
if it wasn't for her, we would never do anything, and the kids would be like, would have no life experience, and I would just be like, let's stay at home and not spend any money ever.
Yeah.
And so it's
100%.
what she brings to the table is a good thing, and like there's a lot of other things that she brings to the table that
100%.
are. So that being said,
Totally feel you.
Long-term thinker. I don't have the option. I have nothing to fall back on. I don't have anybody to go live with, and so sometimes it's like, hey, we like, dude, we got to make this financial situation work, or else we're out on the streets.
Yeah, dude. So just as a caveat, when I said you don't say I don't mean her as a person, I mean her as a woman.
Yeah.
So I was talking to this girl about like my situation right now, and basically she was like, you don't think you should really worry about anybody else right now. You should kind of worry about yourself and what you need. I'm like, you know what? That's a good point, because nobody's looking out for me except for me. Okay, nobody.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Like, this is my line of defense, and so like I don't have, people that just feel sorry for you to take the couch or whatever. Like I have very few options, and so like that's what causes me to like pay more attention, be more tightwad about stuff. Like I pinch pennies and stuff, not because I don't have the money or anything, but just because like I know what it's like to go without. So
yeah, exactly. Well, and yeah, I mean, you put the nail on the head. And when I got out of rehab and got to where I'm at now, I'm not going back, dude. And so
bushwhacker.
I just lost my train of thought. I totally lost it,
dude. Bush.
Yeah.
Bush.
What are we talking?
Scream into a bush.
Oh, not having anything to fall back on. Yeah, so in that sense of people making well,
I want to scream into a bush sometimes.
You made me think when you said people living with their parents with their kids and stuff. It's like, and that's kind of what it's come down to, right? In the sense of like prices and wages and this, that, and the other thing, right? Some people don't have any other options.
The real thing, dude, is like when you do that, when you move back in with your parents and stuff, like a lot of people don't see you as a man, and you might not see yourself as a man and stuff, and really you're doing a manly thing, just trying to do what needs to be done. And like a lot of times, like I try to do that too. Like I'm just trying to get done what needs to be done, and since I know this line is coming up, I'm trying to prepare for that line, and like I'm trying to do the man thing. The man thing is like the hard thing to do. Nobody wants to move back in with their parents.
Yeah.
Right. But like, I don't know. I just like, it bothers me when people compare the expectations of 20 years ago to men now, and they're like, oh, you need to be doing X, Y, and Z because you're the man. And it's like, hold on a second, dude.
Yeah.
Hold on a second.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's what I mean when I talk about prices and wages and extended adolescence and stuff like that. It's like, it's kind of difficult to do the man thing when you find yourself in these situations where, like, let's just say, dude, like you're grinding as hard as you can. You've maxed out your wage for the time being, and you're still living in an 850 square foot 2-bedroom apartment for $2,500.
Yeah.
And
like it's one thing like when a guy is like grinding super hard and like doing everything he needs to do, but then to come home and get shit too, instead of like there's nothing more like awesome for a guy than having a girl like get his back and like hype him up basically to where he's like, yeah, we're not where we want to be right now, but like I got this. Cool, I got it. Like recharges it, dude. Like you're saying, like they complement each other,
Well, that's why I like shout out to my wife in that sense, and like I love the fact that we have traditional gender roles, and like I feel the man role, she feels the woman role, and like, dude.
But she works too.
We're trying to get to a point where she doesn't have to, but in that sense,
yeah, someday.
Like, everything that I do, like, as corny as it sounds, dude, I do feel appreciated by her, because she'll always be like, dude, thank you so much for doing this, and I really appreciate you working at night and doing all the stuff that you have to do to make sure our family, like, you're leading the charge, and she really builds me up, dude. And like there's something to be said about that, like you were just saying.
Yeah, I mean, like I also try to like stay out of trouble, try to do what I got to do,
Dude,
and I
you said a mouthful right there.
honestly, dude, like I do try to like increase my wage too. Like I have been like I do make steps to like ensure that next year will be more prosperous than this year, despite all the challenges, right? But it's all in the setup, like you said. It's not short term. It's like setup. It's set up, and then execute. It's not just like, oh, today I think I'll go fix this problem today. It's like that's not how it really works. And so
I would say that the only reason it seems like things happen overnight is because, like, let's just say for a year, you sacrifice for a year, and then in a week, all this stuff happens. But there was a whole year in between that, and then all of a sudden it happened.
It feels like that because that's how it is in nature too. You have to like plow the soil, put soil down, put the seed in the ground, water it, wait for the sunshine. You don't see any payoff until it sprouts up, and you're like, oh, things are happening. But there was so much work and stuff before any of that even happened. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, I did, and I gotta take it back to music because I always use music analogies at work. It's the same thing with music. You know, like when I show people maybe, oh, dude, that's so cool, this, that, and the other thing. And I'm like, yeah, dude, I started playing guitar at 11, and I started writing at 14. So you're listening to, like, let's just take it from 14. You're listening to 16, 17 years of grinding to get to this.
Yeah.
You know, and it's the same thing with what you were saying with work and making the wages go up, this, that, and the other thing, and making sure everything is like as secure as possible because there's no such thing as true security, right?
And there is something to be said too about like the climb too, that like the climb and adversity like does grow you and build you. But at some point you do want to reach at least a plateau. You know? And I think like there is when you're doing all that and you also aren't getting poured into at the same time, like you're getting shit from people, that it's like you kind of get this weird like despair thing where you're like discouraged, I guess.
You get stuck in like a feedback loop, right?
Yeah.
Where you're down on yourself and then other people are down on you, and then it just feeds itself.
Like for instance, like say I was at home and I had like a job at like, I don't know, grocery store or something, and people are like, well, when are you gonna do something? What are you gonna do? And it's like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm looking for avenues. I'm looking for the off ramp. The off ramp, okay? Can't find it yet. Not there yet. Still going down the highway. But like that's how I would feel if I was in that situation. I'd be like, because I've been in like situations where I've seen people, you know, where they're like, their parents are like kind of nagging them to do something, and it's like, dude, they're just not there right now, you know, like, and for you to be pushing like that is sort of like, it's not a baby bird pushing him out of the nest. It's an adult bird with broken wings. They're like, dude, you can push me out, but I'm just gonna fall. So
yeah, that's a great point. Yeah. That's the thing when you don't have community and you're not in daily communication with somebody, you just see them every 6 months and it's like, oh, you're still doing that, huh? It's like, well, you didn't see me for the last 6 months, like building things up. It's kind of like this podcast and everything. It's like people are just like, oh, it's just like on Spotify. And it's like, well, you didn't see the 5 years. It took me 5 years to get this studio.
Yeah, true. I didn't just go to Guitar Center and grab a bunch of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. First I had to figure out how to. I had to figure out how to record. Did that in high school. Then I had to figure out how to get multiple channels going at the same time. Then I had to figure out which microphone to get. Then I had to figure out, well, where the heck am I going to do this thing? Then I had to find somebody to build me the dang thing.
Then you had to find a good spot in life where it's like okay to do this stuff, where you're not busy as all shit, like can't find any time to do it too.
That's why it took 5 years, right? Because first I was getting sober. Then I got married. And then I had kids. And then I had to wait for my kids to get to a point to where I could do this.
Yeah, dude. So in conclusion, I forgot what I was gonna say, dude.
We started off talking about musicians making a fair wage, and kind of the conclusion we came to.
Nah, we're past that.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Market dictates. Yeah.
I was just gonna say bushwhacker.
Bushwhacker.
Bush.
Yeah, I don't think we really have a conclusion on this one. Bushwhacker.
Now just Bush.
Bush.
God, the simple things, dude. Oh my god.
In conclusion, stay on the grind and enjoy the simple things.
Yeah,
in life.
dude. I hope it gets better. Well, you know, I don't even hope. Like, even if it gets worse, it's still living a pretty good life. But honestly, dude, I don't like doing that anymore. Like the like, oh, at least the glass half full thing.
Oh, I got something to say on that. Yeah.
Because that's ignoring like violations in yourself. So like that's a strong word, but basically it's saying like you feel wronged, or you dislike something, and you're explaining it away and justifying it. Basically you're burying it.
Yeah. So I couldn't sleep last night. I was in bed and I was thinking about gratitude, and I was like, just because I'm grateful for the things that I have does not mean I accept the way things are.
Yeah, that's
You know what I mean?
Perfect way to put it. Yeah.
So it's like yes, be grateful. Don't get all down on yourself and like life is hard and life sucks. Like sure, yes, be grateful, but at the same time, you don't need to accept the way things are.
Right. It could be worse. Yeah, it could be worse. However, that doesn't mean I don't improve the things I can see that need improvement right now.
Yeah.
So
Well said. Well said. All right, man. This has been the video version of Pathway.
Yo
Thank
Yo
you
Ma.
all. Yo Yo Ma. Yo Yo Ma was a famous
Cellist.
Go Celestino.
Plant. Bush.
Thanks everyone for hanging out.
Peace.
We'll see you next time. Peace.